සියලුම SLT මොබිටෙල් සේවාවන් MySLT ඇප් එක හරහා කරගන්න. සියලුම SLT මොබිටෙල් සේවාවන් MySLT ඇප් එක හරහා කරගන්න.
දසනකාන්ති චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයුෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වළකයි.
Imposters. Main opposition party, the Samagi Janabalavagia, says the economic policy presented by President Ranil Wickremesinghe is one that they agree with, but blames some in current government for not allowing the same during government of 2015 to 2019. High stakes. As controversial Chinese research vessel anchored 612 nautical miles from southeast Sri Lanka, reports suggest strong US-Indian pressure on Sri Lanka to deny ship entry. India meanwhile denies pressuring Sri Lanka. Exercises. Pakistan warship that gave rise to speculation arrive in Sri Lanka for joint naval exercises. Arrested. Notorious underworld figure Nadun Chintaka gets arrested by Dubai airport trying to fly under false identity. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9. This Friday, the 12th of August 2022.
විම් දියර මිලිලීටර් 100 ස්මාර්ට් පැක් එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. I'm Andrew Bernard. In a top story for tonight, officials of India and the United States believe that Sri Lanka is giving special treatment to China by allowing the Yuan Wang 5 ship to enter the Hambantota port in the hopes of getting China to restructure debt so that Sri Lanka can make headway with the International Monetary Fund bailout talks. This was highlighted in an article published by the Washington Post, stating that apart from India, US officials too had voiced concerns over the ship's arrival to Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, Yuan Wang 5 vessel currently remains 612 nautical miles southeast of the Hambantota port. The Yuan Wang 5 vessel has been one of the reasons Sri Lanka has been in the spotlight for 2 weeks, as the island tries to not disappoint two of the biggest relief providers. The Chinese research vessel was scheduled to dock at the Hambantota port on the 11th of August and stay within the country's territorial waters until the 17th of this month for what the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs termed as a visit for replenishment purposes. However, the vessel did not arrive at the port yesterday and is according to the Atlas software data collected by the Norwegian company Maritime Optima, located 612 nautical miles southeast from the Hambantota port. The ship is reportedly awaiting permission to dock at the port as it completes 29 days at sea since departing the Taikang port in China on the 14th of July. According to the article published by the Washington Post, the Chinese research vessel has been a source of arising tensions and the symbol of mounting geopolitical tug-of-war between not only India and China but the United States as well. The article went on to say that Indian and US officials have strongly pressured the Sri Lankan government to revoke access to the port, following which Sri Lanka's foreign ministry requested the Chinese officials to reconsider the arrival date of Yuan Wang 5 vessel to the country. Further, the article read that while the arrival of the Chinese Navy ship at Hambantota is not strategically significant, Indian and US officials argued that the move could be viewed as Sri Lanka giving China special treatment, given that Sri Lanka needs China to get on board with restructuring the loans Sri Lanka has with China in order to make headway with the IMF program. In the meantime, the Union of Independent Parties issued a statement today saying that the government must grant permission for the Chinese vessel to enter Sri Lanka. The statement also called on the government to work promptly to ensure that the issues arisen on a state level be dealt and resolved in that capacity while protecting the long-term bilateral relations Sri Lanka shares with China. The Union of Independent Parties also stated that Sri Lanka will not be able to bear the brunt of misunderstandings and estrangement that might take between Sri Lanka, India and China, as both the countries have provided economic aid to the country. 8 representatives, including the leader of the National Freedom Front, Vimal Weerawansa, leader of the Pivithuru Heloramaya, Udaya Gammanpila, General Secretary of the Democratic Left Front, Vasudeva Nayanakara, signed the announcement issued by the Union of Independent Parties. Now, India today categorically rejected insinuation by China that it is pressuring Sri Lanka over the planned visit by Chinese research and satellite tracking vessel Yuan-15 to Hambantota. The remarks were made by India's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Arid Nambangche during the weekly media briefing in response to a question raised on the Chinese vessel. The spokesperson for Indian Foreign Ministry Affairs said Sri Lanka is a sovereign country and makes its own independent decisions. Speaking on the bilateral relations of the two nations, the spokesperson said Sri Lanka is central in India's neighbourhood first policy and reminded that this year itself, India has extended support of $3.8 billion, most of which came under credit line facilities. Now, Pakistan's guided missile frigate Taimur docked at the Colombo port this morning for a formal visit which is expected to last until the 15th of this month. The Pakistan naval vessel is expected to engage in a few programs organized by the Sri Lanka Navy and will conduct its own naval exercises with the Sri Lanka Navy before parting the country. The Chinese-built Pakistan Navy ship Taimur arrived at the Colombo port this morning. The visiting vessel was accorded a welcome by the Sri Lanka Navy in compliance with its traditions. According to the Sri Lanka Navy, the Pakistani guided missile frigate built by Hudong Shanghua shipyard in Shanghai is in Sri Lanka for a formal visit. The PNS Taimur, which is 134 meters in length, is manned by a crew of 169. The vessel's commanding officer, Captain M. Yasir Tahir, is scheduled to call on Commander of the Western Naval Area at the Western Naval Command headquarters today. The ship, meanwhile, is expected to remain in the island until the 15th of August, and the crew of the ship will take part in several programs organized by the Sri Lanka Navy to promote cooperation and goodwill between the two navies. Further, PNS Taimur is expected to conduct a naval exercise with the Sri Lanka Navy in Western Seas on its departure on the 15th of August. In the meantime, PNS Tuggeril, an identical warship belonging to the Pakistani Navy, arrived in Sri Lanka on an official visit on the 13th of December 2021 and conducted a successful Navy exercise with SLNS Sindhurala off the western coast on the 16th of December. Naval exercises of this nature with regional navies will enable each partner to overcome common maritime challenges in the future through enhanced cooperation. Now, Samagi Janawala Vege parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva says that the opposition is ready to support an all-party government if the incumbent government agrees to proceed with the action plan presented by the opposition. Making a special statement in Parliament today, Dr. Harsha De Silva also said that the short-term program by President Ranil Wickremesinghe to recover the economy was prepared in the period from 2019 to 2014, time period when the current president was a leader of the opposition.
මේ විදුලි මිල වැඩි කිරීම දරා ගන්න බැරි තත්ත්වයකට අද බිහි වෙලා තිබෙනවා. මිනිස්සුන්ට සහනයක් ලබා දෙන ආකාරයට මේ කාර්යය කරන්නයි කියලා මම ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා.
දැන්ට රිවයිස් බජට් එක අපි න්‍යායපත්‍රයට ඇතුළත් කරන්න අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු කරගෙන යනවා. විශේෂයෙන් අඩු ආදායම් ලාභීන්ට මේ විදුලි බිල සම්බන්ධයෙන් ගත යුතු පියවර ගැන යම් පියවරක් ගන්න කටයුතු කරමින් පවතී.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඉදිරිපත් කරපු ආර්ථික ප්‍රතිපත්තියත් එක්ක එකඟයි. අය මම බය වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ ඒක කියන්න. දැනුම හා තාක්ෂණය මත පදනම් වෙච්ච ඉහළ තරඟකාරීත්වයක් ඇති සමාජ වෙළඳපොළ ආර්ථිකයක් නිර්මාණය කරන්න ඕනේ ඉන්දියානු සහ ඔහු එකතු කරපු පැසිෆික් සාගරයේ කේන්ද්‍රස්ථානය හැටියට. ඕක තමයි ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම මේ රට දියුණු කරන්න තියෙන වැඩපිළිවෙල. රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයා, සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්මයා, අපේ සියලු කණ්ඩායම අපි මේකත් එක්ක එකඟ වුණා. 2015-19 කාලේදී අපිට මේක කරන්න බැරි වුණා. ඇයි බැරි වුණේ? සමා වෙන්න මම වැරද්දක් කියනවා නෙවෙයි. අද ආණ්ඩුවේ ඉන්න කට්ටිය මේක කරන්න දුන්නේ නැහැ. මේ රට ලෝකෙට එකතු කරන්න දුන්නේ නැහැ. සිංගප්පූරු වෙළඳ කිවිසුම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඒක නැති කරන්න කිව්වා. ඒක ඉරලා විසි කරන්න කිව්වා. ලංකාව ලෝකෙට එකතු කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ කිව්වා. බිල්ලෝ මැව්වා. ඊට පස්සේ ලිඳේ ඉන්න ගෙම්බෝ වාගේ අපි හිටිය අන්තිමට බංකොලොත් වුණා. වෙලාවකට ගරු කතානායකතුමනි මට හිතෙනවා ගෙදර ගියා නම් ඉවරයි කියලා. කරන්න බැරි.
And we'll be back with more news. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. The notorious drug peddler and underworld figure Nadun Chintaka has been arrested by law enforcement authorities in Dubai. It is also reported that he was arrested along with a woman alleged to be his wife and another individual at an airport in Dubai as they were making their way to travel to Malaysia. Wanted drug peddler and underworld figure Nadun Chintaka, also known as Harakata, fled to Dubai 2 years ago using forged travelling documents. He had travelled to Dubai after assuming the identity of a deceased individual who was known as Roshan Ishankar, residing in the area of Midigama in Galle. Sri Lanka's Police Narcotics Bureau had received information that Nadun Chintaka had arrived at an airport in Dubai yesterday with the intention of travelling to Malaysia using his false identity, with the woman alleged to be his spouse. Reportedly, after the underworld figure handed over his forged documents to the immigration and immigration officers in Dubai, they had taken measures to arrest him, his alleged wife, and another individual. The Police Narcotics Bureau had managed to seize close to 1 ton of heroin that had been sent by Nadun Chintaka at many instances to the country through various means. Police state that he is responsible for orchestrating the murders of more than 20 people in the southern province in recent times. The police further stated that they also suspect that Nadun Chintaka could also be responsible for the shooting that took place inside the Mount Lavinia court recently. Even though red notices had been issued by Interpol for the apprehension of the notorious drug peddler and underworld figure Nadun Chintaka, law enforcement officers have been unable to confirm his identity due to the forged travel documents. Local authorities are working closely with the Dubai law enforcement officials to confirm his identity. Security forces personnel stated that prompt measures will be taken on a diplomatic level to extradite the individual currently apprehended by the Dubai police if his identity is confirmed to be Nadun Chintaka. Now, the requirement of 80% school attendance will not be taken into account for students sitting for the GC Advanced Level examination this December. The Education Ministry says the decision was taken considering issues faced by the students due to the COVID-19 pandemic and fuel shortages which disrupted transportation facilities in the country. In a statement, the Education Ministry further said that school principals have been given directives in this regard. In the meantime, the deadline to accept applications for the National Colleges of Education based on results of the 2019 and 2022 advanced level examinations has been extended to the 19th of August. Now, the Ministry of Tourism and Lands stated that the cabinet approval was granted to extend visas of tourists wishing to tour Sri Lanka as part of promoting and re-establishing tourism in the country. Issuing a statement, the Tourism Minister said that a cabinet of ministers approved to grant tourist visas up to 180 days to tourists obtaining electronic travel authorization to visit Sri Lanka. Tourists who obtain single-entry visas are now permitted to stay up to 270 days in the country, valid only for single entry. In addition, the cabinet also decided to extend the visas of tourists who visit the country under multiple entry categories to 1 year from 90 days at present. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Tourism and Lands stated that it has appointed an advisory committee in view of the progress of the tourism industry comprising experts from varying fields. The ministry added that while the committee comprises of 22 representatives, official authority vests with 11 members, while the rest of them take part in an observatory capacity. This committee intends to work on many subjects that impact the tourism industry, including drafting new legislation governing the tourism industry. Now, the Chief Secretary of the Western Province says that steps have been taken to issue revenue license for vehicles in the Western Province on all working days of the week. Issuing a statement, JMC Jayanthi Vijayatunga said that the decision was taken as the fuel crisis in the country has now been somewhat solved. No fine will also be charged for vehicle revenue license in the Western Province expiring from the 29th of June until the 31st of August 2022. In the meantime, today, all the protesters at the Goldface Green were evacuated and had vacated the entire premises earlier today. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court today granted leave to proceed with the hearing of 3 fundamental rights petitions against emergency laws and fixed the hearing of the petitions on October 28th. Colombo Magistrate Tilinda Gamage has ordered to further remand 4 suspects, including activist Danis Ali, until August 26th. The accused were arrested in connection with forcibly entering the president's house and damaging its properties. He is also accused of forcibly entering Sri Lanka Rupawahini Corporation with several other activists and attempting to disrupt telecast last month. Dais Ali, a 31-year-old from Webada in Kurunagala, was arrested on the 9th of 26 July aboard a flight scheduled to Dubai from the Bandaranaike International Airport. In the meantime, Reverend Father Jeevantha Piris, who appeared before the Colombo 4th Magistrates Court through his attorneys this morning, was later granted bail. During the court proceedings, the Colombo Central Crimes Division requested the magistrate to place Father Piris under remand custody. However, rejecting the request, Colombo 4th Magistrate Tilna Gamage ordered to release Father Piris on 2 personal bails of 500,000 rupees each. The magistrate also imposed a foreign travel ban on him and ordered to record a statement with the police tomorrow. The case against Father Piris was scheduled to be taken up again on the 26th of August. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court today granted leave to proceed with the hearing of 3 fundamental rights petitions filed seeking an order that the fundamental rights of the public are violated through the imposition of the state of emergency by President pursuant of the Public Security Ordinance. The Supreme Court further mentioned that it will not issue an interim order suspending the emergency regulations at the moment. In addition, the Supreme Court ordered the Attorney General to reconsider matters contained in the emergency regulations and to inform court within 2 weeks if any amendment is made. The petitions were also called before the Supreme Court bench consisting of Justices Vijit Malgoda, Achala Vengapuli and Mahinda Samayawardana. The petitions were filed by the former Commissioner of Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, Ambika Satkunanathan, and the Centre for Policy Alternatives and its Executive Director, Dr. Pakiyasothi Saravanamuthu, and conveners of the Liberal Youth Movement Attorneys at Law, Rusiru Egodage and Namini Pandita. Welcome back. Now the Colombo Bourse traded positively throughout the session, hoisting the daily turnover to a nearly 6-month-and-a-half high. Retailers pushed the ASPI to surpass the psychological barrier of 9,000 marks and posted the highest intraday gain of 321 points since May 2022. The main index closed at 9,027, generating 6.3 billion rupees of turnover, which settled well above the monthly average of 1.9 billion. Energy sector driven by LIOC dominated the turnover with a contribution of 23%, while food, beverage and tobacco sector driven by plantations and capital goods and sector contributed 22% and 21% respectively. Foreign investors remained net sellers while recording moderate participation. Now, Kazakhstan is expected to sell some of its crude oil through Azerbaijan's biggest oil pipeline from September as the nation seeks alternatives to a route Russia threatened to shut. Kazakh oil exporters account for more than 1% of the world's supplies, or roughly 1.4 million barrels per day. For 20 years, they have been shipped through the CPC pipeline to Russia's Black Sea port of Novorossiysk, which provides access to the global market. In July, a Russian court threatened to shut the CPC, prompting Kazakh government and major foreign producers to set up contracts for other outlets as a precaution. None of the alternatives are as practical as a CPC pipeline, raising the risk of further volatility on energy markets. Shortly after Russia-Ukraine war launched in February, international crude prices hit 14-year highs and prices have stayed high, sustaining an average above $100 a barrel in July. A source with direct knowledge on the matter has told Reuters news agency that Kazakhstan's state oil firm was in advanced discussions with the trading arm of Azerbaijan's state firm Sokar to allow 1.5 million tons per year of Kazakh's crude to be sold through the Azeri pipeline that delivers oil to Turkey's Mediterranean port of Ceyhan. At just over 30,000 barrels per day, the volume is a tickle compared to the usual 1.3 to 1.4 million barrels per day that flows through the CPC pipeline. Another 3.5 million tons per year of Kazakh crude could start flowing in 2023 after another Azeri pipeline to Georgia's Black Sea port of Supsa. Relying on Azerbaijan could allow Kazakhstan to sidestep Russian territory. Now, Latvia and Estonia withdrew from a cooperation group between China and over a dozen Central and Eastern European countries, following in the footsteps of Baltic neighbour Lithuania, which withdrew last year. The move comes amid Western criticism towards China over escalating military pressure on democratically ruled Taiwan, which China claims as its own territory, and Beijing's strengthening of ties with Russia during the invasion of Ukraine. Relations between Lithuania and China worsened after the former allowed Taiwan to open a de facto embassy late last year. Latvia's foreign ministry said the country's continued participation in the China group was no longer in line with our strategic objectives in the current environmental international sphere. In statements published yesterday, both Latvia and Estonia said they would continue to work towards constructive and pragmatic relations with China, while respecting the rules-based international order and human rights. Reuters reported Estonia's foreign ministry was not immediately available for further comment, and the Chinese embassies in Riga, Latvia and Tallinn, Estonia did not immediately respond to the request for comment. Bulgaria, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Greece, Hungary, Poland, Romania, Slovakia and Slovenia are among countries that remain in the China cooperation format. Now we end the news with one of Sri Lanka's most renowned traditions, the Kandi Asala Perahera, also known as the Dalada Perahera, which successfully concluded today. The 1712th Kandi Asala procession came to an end today with the day Perahera parading the streets of Kandy and President Ranil Wickremesinghe being handed with the Perahera epistle from the Nilames who conducted the procession that lasted for 10 days. This was followed by the traditional water cutting ceremony carried out this morning at the Mahavali River in Gatambe. Over the past few days, Indiraja and the fortunate ceremonial tusker carrying the relic casket under the golden canopy walked on white cloth carpets, and Miyaran Raja and Boomaraja in the tusker group amidst upcountry traditional dance, music, singing acts and the worship of thousands gathered in Kandy.